masterclass is all about the ideal temperature for your child's room. Now, it will be different for a newborn than it would for an older child. Newborns are not great initially at regulating their temperature. Then they're really not. And that's kind of gets a little better from about 11, 12 weeks of age. They'll get a little better at doing that. But right with a newborn, there's this sort of, and you've probably heard this, that you should dress your newborn up in one layer more than you would wear. And so that generally can be true if you're keeping, obviously, your bedroom within a range of the perfect ideal temperature for the room. Sometimes people find that temperature a little bit low. Some people find that a little bit high. I really think it depends where you are in the world as to whether you find this low or high. So you're going to dress your child accordingly, but the ideal temperature is between 68 and 72 Fahrenheit, which is between 20 and 22 centigrade. That's kind of the ideal temperature. And then with your newborn, you will be putting an extra layer on them if you're within this normal range. Now, if your room is warmer than that, then you're going to dress your newborn, even your newborn, in less layers. If your bedroom is cooler, then you may put more layers on. Now, you want to be really mindful with a newborn that you are not putting too many layers on. So really be mindful if you're swaddling and you're just wrapping and wrapping and wrapping, that there are lots and lots of layers that your child may be in. So I know some of the swaddles that you can buy have, really lots of fabric to go around. Just be mindful of that with your newborn and what their temperature is, because they can get too hot, and being too hot does increase the risk of SIDS. So we obviously want to it'd be better to keep your child a little bit cooler than too hot. So your newborn shouldn't be wearing a hat to sleep in. Outside, yep, out and about is okay, but they shouldn't be when you're at home. They shouldn't be wearing a hat to sleep. Just that extra layer should be completely fine. I'm a huge fan of swaddles that are just one layer. It's just so much easier. Then this could be your extra layer that you have for your newborn. They're nice and snug. They're going to be a great temperature as well. Now, if you do want to check your child's temperature, you should check if you want your fingers to be normal temperature, not freezing cold, not really, really warm. And then you can just check the nape of their neck, which is the bottom bit of their neck, just there. Just check their neck. That's going to give you a really good indication of their temperature. Older children, you can check their chest as well. But for infants, and even getting a little bit older, if you check their hands, then the hands will often be cold because the circulation is not great to begin with. So checking their hands is not going to give you a real good indication. The nape of their neck will. So just with normal temperature, you'll be able to feel whether your child is a little bit sweaty, because that's where it will happen with a newborn. Newborns are not great at sweating either. So that's where you will feel it, definitely. So that can be your guide. But you want to keep the room between 68 and 72, between 20 and 22. And then you are dressing your newborn one extra layer than you would wear. Once we get past this kind of 12 week, where there really is this really big shift with sleep, once we get past this 12 weeks, we can then just ditch that extra layer. And you may want to, as your child's getting out of a swaddle, you may want to put them in a sleep sack. A sleep sack is a great way of regulating your child's temperature, keeping their temperature pretty consistent, because they're not able to kick that thing off. Blankets and things, which should only go up to chest height anyway, can easily get moved as your child moves around. There is a little bit of a danger with those as well. So I am a huge fan of sleep sacks for any age. I know in Europe they make them for quite old. They're beginning to make them for a little bit older now in the US. But they're a really great way of keeping your child nice and warm. Now, I hear from a lot of families that their children don't like having anything on their feet. And that's just, some people don't. They do now. There's a few companies out there that make sleep sacks that have little feet holes so the feet can sort of like poke through. So if your child doesn't like having their feet covered, then there is something out there for them which is going to keep them nice and snug and warm. And they're going to sleep great because you're making them super nice and comfortable. So you want to be dressing your child as you would dress, and think about sort of different layers, the layers that you would have on. You want to be doing similar for them. Now, a sleep sack is going to be thinner than your covers, but that's okay. Check on the manufacturer as to what temperature they are suggesting. Most of the manufacturers who make sleep sacks will tell you sort of what temperature that this sleep sack is ideal for, because some of them are really, really light for summer and some of them are a bit heavier. A lot of them sleep sacks will have TOG ratings, and that's sort of like a European way of measuring bed covers, the warmth and the heaviness and the weight of bed covers. And I'm sure it stands for something, but I don't know what. And so you'll have different TOG ratings on different sleep sacks. With my kids, we were living in Brazil when my kids were born, and so we didn't have air conditioning, but when it was really, really hot in the summer, I have a half TOG sleep sack, which was just very, very thin cotton. But then when we went back to Europe, then we would have a much thicker, like a 2.5 TOG. Doesn't seem much, doesn't sound like much, but it would be much thicker. And then we would obviously do different layers. Summer, half a TOG, there was just diaper underneath the sleep sack. And then in Europe, 2.5 TOG, we were sort of like having a onesie, just making sure that they were comfortable with PJs, and then that thicker sleep sack. Trying to keep our ideal temperature between 68 and 72. I often hear from families who live Arizona or Florida, where it is really, really warm, that actually it would cost them an absolute fortune to keep their rooms that cool, especially at nighttime in the middle of summer. And I get it, that's fine. So you just want to keep your rooms as cool as you can. You can have fans as well that are going to be circulating air, which will make your child feel a little bit cooler, and dress them accordingly, checking their chest, checking their neck to see how warm or cool that they are, and dress them accordingly. And then that's the same at winter, 68 to 72. It's 68 may be that's going to cost an absolute fortune to keep your bedroom at that temperature in the middle of winter. And so dressing your child accordingly. Layers are going to be great. Now remember, with your newborn, you want to be erring on the side of caution and going a little bit cooler than too hot. We don't want to be bundling up too much, because it does increase the risk of SIDS, and we want to obviously decrease that risk, so a little bit cooler. But temperature is something that can be the difference between your child sleeping well because they're feeling comfortable, or having more disturbed nights as well. So if your child is a little bit cool, they are more likely to wake many times during the night, the same way that you would if you were feeling cold. So in the same way as you would if you were feeling hot. So you can have really disturbed sleep if the temperature is not right and your child is not comfortable in there. Great. I am so glad that I was able to share some information on the ideal temperature for the nursery and for your child's bedroom. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. I will